Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our Paws on Netflix podcast for October.
Yes, and in today's podcast we're covering Rob Zombie's Munsters movie that just recently dropped on Netflix.
Yes, and this movie serves as a prequel to the TV series showing how Lily and Herman first fell in love. It's considered a comedy film. It was produced, written, and directed by Rob Zombie.
Yes, and before we start with that, be sure to like, subscribe, and notification updates on future podcasts and World of Pods videos.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And more.
So, this one already had, this was already talked about quite a bit before it was even out. We saw the trailer, and this was possibly one of those cases where the trailer looks not good, and it's the opposite of the movie.
We liked the trailer being in black and white. We thought that was pretty neat.
Right.
They showed some color later, but the black and white helps to connect it to the original series.
Right.
And for those of you that aren't familiar, this Munsters 2022 film is based on the 1960s family sitcom of the same name, and the story takes place prior to the events previously adapted by the series, serving as an origin of the characters.
Right. That's why there's no Eddie and there's no Lily in here either.
You mean Marilyn?
I keep mixing up their names, whatever.
Yeah, there's no Marilyn and no Eddie, that's correct. There's a Lily or there'd be no movie.
Alright. Oh no, they can still do one character, I guarantee they find a way.
Well, we're happy to say that we actually like the movie. The movie's not bad. It really, I would have to say Rob Zombie really worked hard to keep what was canon. And what's really exciting is seeing someone who actually not only watched the show, whether it was when it came on reruns, and I think on his age it's probably based on reruns like we watch it, he actually loves the series, and you can tell by this movie. And It's so exciting and so refreshing because we're so tired of reboots and spin-offs and prequels that hate the original, or the people never watched it, or they hate the show. This is not the case for this movie.
Right. And this one focuses more on the monster world instead of the human world, since they're already part of it in the show. They decided to show more of how the monsters live in here. And they do their best to keep it in the style of the show where you don't take the monsters too seriously, and they have a little goofy spin on it. The only difference, I think, would be that it has a little bit of a modern point to it. It's still supposed to be taking place in the 60s, just like the TV show, but by certain things they say in their dialogue, and they now get away with some innuendo, so that's what gives it the PG rating instead of a G rating. So they try to sneak in a little bit more, but luckily they don't add in so much where it's like, okay, your kids shouldn't be watching it. They just keep it some adult jokes in there.
Yes. Now, this film stars Jeff Daniel Phillips, Sherry Moon Zombie, the wife of Rob Zombie, and Daniel Roebuck. He plays Grandpa, she plays Lily, and Jeff Daniel Phillips plays Herman. And then you have some special appearances by some old friends, and you have a couple of stars that are known for their horror connections. We won't spoil it for you. One of them is already being shown in the trailer, but some others aren't, so we don't want to spoil those surprises for you. And what was really smart about this movie is that it's a co-production of Universal 1440 Entertainment and Spook Show International Films. It was released on digital, Blu-ray, and DVD the same day it became available to stream on Netflix, which was September 27th.
Yeah.
That was really, really a brilliant move. And I wish a lot of other studios would do the same thing.
And another thing you pointed out earlier was that it should have been in black and white, because they used the black and white Universal Pictures logo from the time that the Munsters was made, which was great, and then they used black and white at the very end to close out the movie, but we don't understand why it wasn't black and white throughout the whole thing. And it looks like the point of the movie is that it's supposed to be a grand spectacle like Munster Go Home, where it was the first thing in color, and was supposed to be, oh, look how it is in color, but this time they should have done the reverse and kept it black and white, because that was only one of the few things that kind of didn't look right, was seeing everything in color, and a lot of it didn't like look right because you're used to seeing it like the old movies, which you thought what he was gonna do in the beginning with the logo.
Right.
He should have kept it like that because there was a lot of color on here and it was a little bit odd looking at that because you're used to seeing the whole show minus the movie in black and white.
Yes. But despite that and the other thing you mentioned with the rating, it was really fun. It has some interesting moments, some creative ideas for how Lily and Herman got together. And this time the person playing Grandpa, Daniel Roebuck, was not put off and offensive like in the Monster reboot that took place some years ago. He actually tried to stay true to the canonical performance of Grandpa.
Right.
And I think he did a great job. He had an extra, as Russell kept saying, he has a mustache.
Yeah, a large mustache for whatever reason.
And his clothes were a little more fancier. But other than that, he really did a good job in portraying Grandpa as we're used to seeing him in the 60s version. Lily, she did a good job, but the only thing that was a little off-putting is I think when Yvonne DiCarlo portrayed Lily, those mannerisms that she had, a lot of them were her own natural mannerisms. And so when Sherry Zombie portrays her, she attempts to really keep to her mannerisms, which I think was a great job. Only thing I would say is maybe, and Ratzel was pointing this out, she could have done a little less and put some of her own mannerisms into it. So she made Lily her own character, so we would have seen part of Lily that we know, as well as seeing her side and her take on it, and that would have made it a better performance as well. But she did great. She really did. So, and how do you think of Jeff Daniels?
I think he was pretty okay.
Sorry, Jeff Daniels. Sorry.
Okay. He did as close as possible.
Yeah, the laugh spot on.
Right. And the mannerisms were pretty much the same. It looked like they took more from season 2 than 1 because we saw there was a change in Herman between seasons, so they just tried to make him just season 2. And they were showing how he got into entertainment and comedy because his brains of a failed comedian that especially he was so bad they decided to just take him out on the spot. And it was like, now that's a rough crowd. And they wanted a genius to be in his brain, but the guy that's the assistant got it wrong and got the brother, and the brother was the bad comedian, so that's why Herman was ended up being a goofball and like bad comedy. So that was an interesting way of making it, since you don't really have an origin. It was good that they at least try to make it believable that the stuff could happen. It's not just something like out of nowhere and trying to make it something else that didn't fit into the Munsters.
And I think in showing his portrayal of how Lily and Herman met was a love letter to the series itself. And again, we think they did a really good job in staying to what was canon. We saw a lot of one appearance characters that actually ended up being fun. And we're like, okay, this is Zombo and this is so forth.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
It seemed like a little bit in the positive way for Cowboy Bebop did is that I told you the director of that seemed to love the movie more than the show. So for the parallel here, it seemed like Rob Zombie loved a lot of the one-off characters, at least the one-off family members, because you had, like you said, Zombo and Uncle Gilbert. Lester actually has a bigger role in here, and they have more of the ones you only see for maybe an episode or less, and they end up being more prevalent in here when they have like a montage or a flashback or something, and that was actually interesting. So at least proves that he's seen the show to know the characters.
Yes, definitely. And I think what was interesting also is where this movie was produced. It was produced in Budapest, Hungary. It wasn't produced in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Or someplace we're familiar with. They actually scouted and began shooting in Budapest in June of 2021. Including their designs for the Munsters house on Mockingbird Lane and early sculpting for the Herman Munsters head and prosthetic. So, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the original house. I know that it was used in Desperate Housewives. I never saw the show, but one time I saw a commercial and saw the house, and I knew immediately it was the Munster house. And I think, unfortunately, they tore it down.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and they built their own version. And you know that I guess they did the best they could, not being able to even transport the house and rebuild it, which would have been great.
Right.
But they did okay. I mean, the setting wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And when they said they were in California, you actually believe they were in California.
Right, you got confirmation that's where it was too. And two things definitely want to mention is that, you know, it's not, the humor's different in here. They were trying to make it like the humor of them, but they put a lot of the modern humor in there, so not every joke hit, but they did get some laughs. I didn't laugh throughout the whole thing like I do with the regular Munsters, but there was enough in there where it was like, okay, that's some joke they would make. They kept in where the people were scared of them and they misunderstood everything. They kept Spot in. You actually got to see what he looked like. They kept a lot of things in there that you know were Munsters, so it was, you know, passable. You doesn't feel like you're sitting and watching something that doesn't end.
Now, one thing that I found interesting reading online is that Rob Zombie is a lifelong fan of the series and it comes through, but he not only wrote and directed this movie, but he's been pursuing developing a film for over 20 years.
Oh, really?
So he really stuck with it until he found a way to do it, which means definitely this was a passion and something he wanted to do. Also, it was reported that the film was rumored to have cost $40 million to produce. He said that's not true. He's not indicating how much it costs. Good for him, but you know, it's obvious this movie didn't cost $40 million to shoot, or to pay the people.
Yeah, and that would be one thing that was really weird. I guess, you know, the original didn't have a huge budget, so it was okay that it looked cheesy. That was part of its charm. It was just for here and trying to replicate it. A lot of stuff looked off. And there were some points where there was some editing errors. You could tell, like, they filmed it 2 different times and they put it together. And the zooming in and out of the camera, they did a lot of zoom in and out effects. They had one scene where half of it was poorly drawn characters, anime on the side.
I think it was tongue in cheek. It was supposed to be funny. I think that was the whole point. It was like a point of ridiculousness. Like sometimes you would see things that were ridiculous in the show, and I think that was his way of putting his ridiculousness into the movie. And it was funny when you saw it, you were like, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
So it was funny.
Right.
Now, it says, I've read that, I should say, not say it says, but I've read that reception for this movie wasn't rated high. Rotten Tomatoes, who cares what they think anymore, gave it 39%, so throw that one in the trash. Metacritic gave it a 57 out of 100.
So about average, yeah.
Yes, I think that for this particular movie, they've been really extremely hard on Zombie because he's not a Hollywood fight. He's not in a regular studio. He didn't have to shop and get someone to accept it and give him permission to make it. He worked with the studios he produced this with to get it out, and I think maybe that's kind of against him. I definitely wouldn't rate it as low as 57 or 31. Again, Rotten Tomatoes, who cares what they think anymore. I would probably give it a 75.
Yeah,
75.
That's fair.
75, between 75 and 80, but I would say 75.
Right. And it's available on Netflix for you to see at any time, and they have it available on every platform now and DVD, so there's no way for you to not see it. Only way you can see it either is if you see it on YouTube.
And this is the perfect time to see it. We saw it early because we wanted to see it the same day that it released, but this is the perfect month for you guys to watch it and have some fun. Don't expect it to be Shakespeare. It's not. Don't expect it to be the original series. It isn't. But what it is I think is a love letter to the original series. He's a lifelong fan, and he did something. He wanted to contribute something to the memory of the cast and the show itself. And I personally think he did a good job. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was not like brilliant, but it was, passable. And you weren't irritated, and you weren't going like, why is this made? You can tell there was effort and passion put into it.
I think it's fun. I think it's kooky. I think it's a love letter to the original show. I think, except for the the PG-13 innuendo.
Mm-hmm.
It really stayed true to being something the family could watch.
Right.
And staying true to what was canon for the characters, and tying it all in together, including bringing in Lily's brother and Grandpa's son Lester.
Right.
That there was something really different.
Yeah.
And he became a main character in this movie.
Yeah, that was different.
Yes. So there's going to be a cavalcade of stars you want to see. I think it's fun. It's worth the watch.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's more than passable. This is one time Rascal and I disagree. I think it's more than passable. I would give it a 75. And I would say if you love the Munsters and you want to see something fun for October and that's not horror, and that's fine. But if you just want to see something that's deviates from the horror track, the Munsters is what you should watch and have a lot of fun watching it.
Yes, you'll definitely have a blast watching this still.
Definitely. And as Rascal mentioned, it's available on Netflix to watch. Also, it's available on DVD and streaming, as she mentioned, on every platform. Give it a watch. If you've already seen it, let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with our comments, or do you have an opposite opinion? Please let us know. If you haven't seen it and you do watch it, come back and let us know. How did you like it? Have you seen the original series, and do you think it was a wonderful homage to the cast, the crew, and the show itself?
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and videos on your favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for watching Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.